Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for holding this hearing on National Park System on the verge of our 100th anniversary birthday celebration. It's important that we have these discussions to make sure that we can continue to enjoy the national treasures that we so much hold dearly. I didn't realize coming in today that I learned that our first national park, apparently, was the Hot Springs in Arkansas. Well, in my district, I think we have our newest national park, at least. No one's called me a liar yet when I say that. But the Hanford nuclear site, where we were part of the Manhattan Project that helped end World War II and the Cold War. Work is being done right now to put together a national park, which is kind of unusual, a unique park, because it will encompass 3 different sites around the country: Tennessee, New Mexico, and Washington. And so very excited about that, and we've already seen a huge uptick in interest. People will be able to visit the B reactor, where the very first production of plutonium on that scale was done in the world. It was a miraculous thing that happened in a very short time that allowed us to end the Cold War and World War II. And so maybe that's a good segue into what was already, I think the chairman started the questioning. I wanted you guys to weigh in a little deeper into how we can encourage the younger people to enjoy our national parks. Is it keeping things fresh, having new parks, plugging into every tree, as Mr. LaMalfa wanted to talk about? How do we engage this newer generation, engage technology companies? How do we get them to invest in our parks? It's a huge issue. As someone said, 50% down as in the number of young visitors to our parks. So could you talk a little bit more about how the plans are going to solve this problem? Mr. Now would be great, and then whoever wants to weigh in.
Thank you, because I think what you're addressing here is the absolute future of the visitation, the demographic makeup of the visitors. The foundation is, in fact, dealing with a major technology firm right now. I'd prefer not to get into it because we're into negotiations with them. But unless we are able, through the park system, to technologically engage the millennials, they're not going to go. If you go to a park today, you look at a visitor experience that's rooted in the 60s and 70s. And all of our research says that they plan ahead, they use technology when they go to a park. For example, there's no signage at Grand Teton when you come in as a visitor on what's called the airport road that says, here are the mountains. If you had it on a handheld, you would engage those visitors, and it doesn't exist right now. Now, that is a huge investment, but that's the investment in the future. I'm as focused on the infrastructure issues as I am on the visitor, because we have to look at this as a marketing problem, and that, I think, is what we're dealing with, to your question.
Thank you. Mr. Crandall?
I'm intrigued with the fact that just a few months ago, National Geographic had a story that it talked about how good old American marketing saved the national parks. It talked about the first director of the Park Service opening up the parks with roads. It was a very expensive process, but without cars, America's parks would not be visited the way they are today. Now, we're not talking about nearly the kind of investment that required the going to the Sun Highway and all of the major roads in Yellowstone and everything else, but we do need to invest in making sure that, as John mentioned, we do communicate, we tell the stories through the way Americans, young Americans and young visitors from overseas learn those stories, which is through the handheld device that they have. So there are tremendous opportunities. Just for example, now looking at cars going on those highways, unfortunately, a lot of the minivans that travel our national parks are watching a Disney movie for the kids in the back. Yeah. We need to do something different. We need to tell them about the park in that minivan with a screen up there and say, look out here to the left and you'll see something great. That technology is not there. The information is there, but it needs to be translated and then made available to the American public.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.